Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience, and tonight I'm here to talk to you about the Hifiman Sundara. About a month ago I received these and they're on loan to me from Hifiman, and about 3 days after I got them I did a first impressions, sort of a mini review of these, and tonight I'm here to do a full detailed review of these headphones. First of all, I wanted to show you what they look like. The word Sundara, I've heard, means beautiful. I think it's Indian, and I guess you could say they're beautiful. They're definitely look different than the older Hifiman headphones. I mentioned in my initial impressions that I wasn't sure if these were meant to replace the 400i or if these were meant to replace the 560. And now it's looking like it probably replaced both of them. The new Ananda seems to be basically the Edition X with the same headband as the Sundara. So it doesn't look like Hifiman is going to come out with a direct replacement for the 560. So I'm assuming these were meant to replace both the 400i and the 560. You can see the looks are a lot different from the 400i or the 560. They have a new grille, which is more of a woven mesh instead of just a plate full of holes. They have new yokes, which Hifiman did have a problem for a while, especially with the 400i. Apparently they got a bad batch of the plastic yokes and had a lot of people that had the yokes break on them. And I think this problem's been resolved, but now the Sundara has I believe it's an aluminum yoke. The ear cups are also made of what looks like aluminum now instead of plastic like on the 400i and 560i. The headband's a different design. It has sort of the same type of adjustments, the click adjustments, but they're a little bit sticky, but they stay in place once you get them where you want them to be. The headband, instead of moving with the yokes, is now mounted to the headband. It's a, I believe, steel headband. The yokes, the biggest difference, besides from being aluminum now instead of plastic, is they don't swivel. They do have a little bit of flex, so they do have some give, but they don't swivel. You know, I think the other one swiveled like 180 degrees. So they don't have the swivel they used to. That doesn't really seem to cause a problem for me. I mean, as far as comfort-wise, when I put these on, they seem to fit, you know, the front to back pressure, everything seems to fit well. What I did find out is that if you want to make small adjustments in front to back pressure, you can tip them forward, rotate them forward or back a little bit on your head. And it does improve, well, it does affect the pressure from front to back a little bit. The ear pads, you can see here, they're thicker in the back and thinner in the front, which creates a little bit of an angle to the drivers, which I think moves the Soundstage a little bit forward, but they're very similar to the pads that were on the 560s. I personally have never had a set of 400i's, so I can't really compare them directly to the 400i, but I do have a pair of Hifiman HE560s that I've had for about a year, that I've got a lot of hours on them, and that's going to be my main comparison in this review tonight. I also have a pair of HE500s that I've had for probably about 6 years now, so I might bring those into the review also. The cable now has 3.5 millimeter pins. The 400i and the 560 both had a smaller 2.5 millimeter. So it's nice that they increased. They fit nice and tight, click into place, they stay there. They seem pretty durable. The cable is different. It's more of a rubberized material. I think it's about 5 feet long, and now it has a right angle 1/8 inch plug on it, but it does come with a 1/4 inch adapter. So I guess this cable was intended to be used with portables, although in my opinion I really don't see the point or why someone would want to use an open back headphone as a portable. They're not the most efficient, but my understanding is they do work fairly well with portables. But like I said, an open back headphone, if you're, I think the best use for this headphone is at home listening in a quiet environment. Anyway, Hi-Fi Man says that these are, according to their specifications, these are 37 ohm headphones, and they have an efficiency of about 94 decibels at 1 milliwatt, which is, from what I understand, very similar to the 400i. I compared them to my headphones, and they seem to be real close in efficiency to the older 500, and they are quite a bit more efficient than the 560s. The 560s are relatively hard to drive, and I would estimate these at about 3 to 4 decibels more efficient than the 560s, which means you only need about half the amp power to drive these as you do the 560s. Hi-Fi Man claims a weight of 372 grams. To me, they feel just about the same as the 560s weight-wise. And as far as how they feel on my head, like I said, they're a comfortable headphone. I would say the pressure is just a little bit strong on the spring, but it's not bad. It doesn't bother me. I've worn these for a couple hours at a time without any real problems comfort-wise. They stick to my head. You can move around. You can tip forward. They're not going to fall off. The weight seems to be pretty well distributed across the top of my head and around my ears. So I really have no complaints comfort-wise with these headphones. I guess we should talk about how they sound. First, I wanted to tell you what equipment I used in testing these. First of all, as a comparison, I have these HE500s and HE560s. And for an amp, I used, and source, well, I used a Cambridge Audio 540C CD player as a transport into a Benchmark Media DAC1 combination DAC and headphone amp, which is right up here. That uses the same HP A2 headphone amp as the newer Benchmark DAC2 and DAC3. It hasn't changed at all. This is known as a very clean and detailed amp. It's not the most powerful amp in the world at 1.25 watts, but it is very clean power, and it works very well with these headphones. It's all the power these need. I also, going out of the Benchmark, I go into a Shitloki equalizer, and then from there into a Emotiva A100 Bass X amp. And I do have the jumpers in, so it is capable of putting 12.5 watts per channel into 32 ohms. I have actually used these headphones with it, and they sound fantastic, but I don't have a lot of volume control. I can only range it from about 730 on the dial to about 9 o'clock, and then it's getting into being too loud. So really the benchmark works better. I have better volume control, but I did want to try it through the Emotiva to use a tone control, and it does respond well to equalization, giving the Sundara a little bass boost, couple 2-3 decibels, minor adjustments, works out real well, doesn't cause any distortion, and they do respond well to equalization. But getting past that, let's talk about the sound. The first thing I would say about these headphones sound-wise is they have an excellent tone balance. I'm real happy with just the overall balance of the tone. It just seems right on, almost perfect to me. All the way from the bass to the treble. Let's start with the sub bass. They do roll off a little bit sooner than the HE560s. The HE560s are pretty much flat down to 20 hertz. These roll off a couple decibels starting at 30 hertz. By the time you get to 20 hertz, I think they're down about 2 or 3 decibels. So they don't have quite the bass extension of the 560s, but you're only going to notice that on the occasional song. Most songs, you're never going to notice the difference in the bass extension on these. What these do have though is once you get into the mid bass, say maybe about 80 hertz, they actually have more impact than the HE560s. So on most songs, you're actually going to get the impression that these have more bass impact than the 560s. The 560s, a problem I've always had with them is on some recordings, the bass sounds perfect. And then on other recordings, it seems to be lacking a little bit. And that seems to be affected by how low the bass goes. Where these, what I've noticed is just about everything sounds right on them. No matter what you listen to, the bass feels right. They're not picky like the 560s. The 560s, with the right song, they sound perfect. With others, the bass seems sort of lacking and they sound a little bit thin. Where the bass with more impact with these just feels more solid, and I'm actually, like I said, most songs you're going to feel like these have more bass than the 560s. Getting into the mid-range, very well balanced, and I would say very detailed, very clear, and at least the detail of the 560s. Once you get into the treble, that's where I think these actually pull away from the HE560s. They have a little more energy in the mid-treble, and I would say the treble detail is better than the 560s. But yet, it's a very smooth treble, and it's not fatiguing. So I think Hifiman did a really good job on these as far as the treble. They made a very detailed and treble with a lot of energy, but yet not fatiguing and just very smooth. But I do hear more detail, especially in the mid-treble with these than I did with the 560s. The Soundstage. The 560s, in my opinion, have a very good soundstage, and I would say these are very similar. The width seems to be about the same to me. These may have a slightly more depth to the soundstage and slightly more height to the soundstage. But very expansive, you know. I mean, just the music is not... I basically hear it in 3 layers. I hear the first layer at my ears, then I hear another layer out here, and then another layer out here. And just it just surrounds me. It surrounds my whole head. I hear sounds from down low, I hear sounds from up high, I hear them from right in front of my face to out further. I have no complaints at all about the Soundstage on these. As far as imaging, what I did notice is it's actually more precise than on the 560s. The 560s, I'll hear a sound and it might be, say, right here. I'll hear the sound coming from this area. But with the Sundaras, instead of being from this area, it's like right there, right at that one point. It's just more precise, the Soundstage. Instead of the sound coming from a general area, it's coming from a specific point. It might be here, over here, whatever. So the imaging is very precise on these. And it actually took me a little while to get used to it, because it sounded, when I first listened to these, it was almost to the point I felt disoriented, because it was like, if I sat there in the dark, I just felt like the music was moving all around me, and it was almost to the point where, you know, I felt like I was moving, but it was the sound moving around me, but it was so precise that I wasn't really used to that. Like I said, on the 560s, the sound comes from a general area. Both headphones have very good instrument separation, where you hear each instrument completely separate from another. They're never coming from the same place. But like I said, on the Sundara, each place that the music is coming from is a point instead of an area. It's just more accurate, more precise. As far as the overall sound of these, I would just say that they're very detailed, yet they're smooth. I'm not sure how that works. You would think that having a smooth sound would take away some detail, but it doesn't at all. They're very detailed, at least as detailed as the 560s, but yet a smoother, less harsh sound than the 560s, especially in the treble. I know that some people said that they didn't care for the 560s. They thought the treble was a little bright. And in my initial impressions, I said that I thought that these were a little less bright than the 560s. But that's not really the case. I would say the treble is as bright as the 560s, but it's smoother and less harsh than the 560s, so it just sounds better, and it's completely non-fatiguing, where the 560s after a little while can get to you. So, like I said before, I think Hifiman did a really good job with the treble on these. So overall, I would say, once again, an excellent tone balance. Just a slight roll-off in the sub-bass region, but I think it's made up for with a little extra impact in the mid-bass. Very balanced mid-range, very detailed. Very smooth and detailed treble, and I really like the sound of these. I'm real happy with them. Is there anything I don't like about them? I can only think of two things. I've been listening to these for a month now, and I probably have, I would say, about 30 hours of actual listening time in on them. And the two things that I really don't like, and I noticed these from the very beginning, when I was opening the box, it's sort of a cardboard box with a little, like, sort of a satin cloth liner to it, which is fine. I have no problems with that. But the problem I did have is to put these back in the box, you have to first of all remove the cable, then you have to collapse the headband all the way down to fit them in the box, which I thought was a huge hassle, that every time I listened to them, I had to reinstall the headband and reinstall the cable and readjust the headband. The cable's not that big a deal, but I thought readjusting the headband was sort of a pain. So that, and the only other thing that I really don't like is the cable, like I said, is sort of a rubbery material, and I actually think I preferred the cable on the 560, which was more of a cloth material. And I really don't see the point of the 1/8 pin, because I just don't see that many people using these with a portable. So I'd rather have a 1/4 inch plug on it. But the other thing is that the cable is only about 5 feet long. And if I want to plug these into my desk amp and sit back and put my feet on the desk, I'm going to run out of cable. So I would really like about another 1 foot to 2 feet of cable on these. Other than that though, I would say that for the price, $4.99, you're going to have a hard time finding a better headphone than these. The new design, I like it. The build quality, I know Hifiman had some problems with the yokes and a few questions about build quality, but these seem solid. I don't think anything's going to come apart on these. And as far as the sound, I'm very happy with them. Like I said, very balanced, very detailed. I don't think you can go wrong for $4.99 with these headphones, and I doubt that anything in that price range is going to be significantly better. I mean, it might be different, and to your personal taste, you might find something else you like better. But as far as an overall headphone that works well with just about any kind of music that I tried, I have no problem recommending these headphones. In fact, I highly recommend them. I think they're a great headphone. Well, that about wraps up my review tonight. If you like my review, please like it on YouTube, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And also, I'm the administrator of the Headphone Experience on Facebook. So if you're not already part of our group, please join us at the Headphone Experience. Thank you very much.